Awesome. We'll give it just a minute for everyone to hop on. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And happy officially fall. I think it's officially fall, right? It's all started. We're officially in the fall season. It's autumn. We're working into spooky season. I know that's a big thing at QGive. We're big Halloween people.
You all dress up? Like, do you do a whole thing?
There is definitely at least a desk decorating contest that people get very into. I can't remember if the costume contest happens, but it is arguably the biggest time of year in our office.
That's really fun.
Awesome. Well, it looks like people are still getting started, but I want to keep us on time today, so we'll get things rolling. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Danny Clough. I'm the channel marketing coordinator over here on the QGive team. Today, I'm joined by Julia Gockenbach and Emily Zosik from DonorPerfect, who are going to be sharing insights into how you can raise more this Giving Tuesday using modern technologies like artificial intelligence. A few house notes before we begin today. We are recording this webinar, so all registrants are going to receive an email tomorrow afternoon with a link to the session as well as some additional resources. So please feel free as we're going through today's webinar, if you have any questions, add those into the Q&A area. Feel free to talk with Emily, Julia, and I throughout the webinar on the chat. If you have any problems with that Q&A area, you can also put those questions into the chat and I'll make sure to make note of those so that we can get to all of them at the end when we have our Q&A time. Before we get started, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with QGive, we are an online fundraising platform. We have solutions for all sizes of nonprofits, including year-round fundraising tools, text giving, peer-to-peer fundraising, and auction tools. If any of those sound like something that could benefit you and your organization's fundraising efforts, please reach out to us. We'd love to talk more with you about how QGive can help you reach your goals. We're also so excited to refer all of you to our amazing partner network, of course, that including DonorPerfect. DonorPerfect works with nonprofits to help them raise money, save time, and grow their community of supporters using smart fundraising solutions and data-driven best practices. And of course, joining us today are Julia Gockenbach and Emily Zosik. Hopefully I'm pronouncing their names correctly, so feel free to correct that when y'all take over. We're so excited to have both of them with us today, and that we get to benefit from their years of experience as fundraisers and working with nonprofits closely to help them reach all of their fundraising goals. I know they have a lot to cover with us today, so if you're a note taker like I am, get your pens and pencils ready to go, because I'm going to hand things over to them.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much, Danny.
Yeah.
Emily's going to work on sharing her screen. In that time, I'll introduce our topic today. We are talking about year-end fundraising with AI. So using tools that will help you save time and raise more for Giving Tuesday and beyond. We'll touch a little bit on Giving Tuesday. We'll touch on end of year, just great habits and great ways to save you time. I am Julia Gockenbach. I am the communications manager at DonorPerfect. And prior to that, I worked for 10 years in nonprofits. I was a assistant. I was a relationship manager. I was a development director. I was a team of one. I was a team of four, all the things. So I totally understand whatever space you're in your fundraising life cycle at the moment, and really excited to just come alongside of you and help you to use AI in a way that saves you time and effort, because we know you're doing so much. I personally use AI a lot in my job. As mentioned, I'm a communications manager. Emily and I work on the same team. I use it a lot to help cure writer's block. So if I have a concept in my head that I can't quite flesh out, I'll put it into an AI tool and say, this is what I want to communicate. What are some major points that I can use to drive home this important topic? Or it will help me get started on projects. Like if I know that I need to work on a campaign for Giving Tuesday, I can go to an AI tool and say, hey, how do I get started on creating a Giving Tuesday campaign? Again, just really simple questions that you can use for AI that we use in our everyday work.
And I'm Emily Zosik. So I'm a copywriter with DonorPerfect. Been there for about 1.5 years, coming up on 2 years now. But before that, I was also a fundraiser for about 10 years. So I've been an assistant. I've been an annual giving director. I've done stewardship. I've done grateful patient fundraising. And I think that's everything. I've kind of worn a lot of hats. So yeah, I've been a team of 3 and I've been on a team of 60. So I also know all of the challenges and the joys and the oys of working in a kind of fundraising environment, any kind of fundraising environment, really. So I am really excited to be here, and I'm really excited to share with you ways that you can really easily use AI to help you with your Giving Tuesday and your end of year fundraising efforts. I really like to use AI tools when I'm stuck on a subject line in particular. I don't know why, when it's like very few words, that's when I really struggle. So if I need like 10 words to entice someone to open that email, I'm like, come on, give like ChatGPT, help me out. I also like to see the same message in a variety of voices, so that you can kind of see if like a formal voice might be more compelling, or an emotional voice, or you can even use like specific writers or actors even. So I've done like my favorite podcast host, how might they say this type of message? So you can really get creative and mess around. So I enjoy AI for that. And I'm so excited to introduce our new little mascot. This is DonorPerfect. He is our expert navigator of AI tools. He was born as part of our AI for Nonprofits guide. And the next slide will have a QR code for y'all to download that. But he is there to point out important points in that guide and to help you raise more money and save time while you do it. And I'm just obsessed with him. So welcome to the world, Donnie.
So cute. Yeah. This is the QR code that Emily mentioned. So we're going to cover a lot today, but we can't cover everything that DonorPerfect produces when it comes to year-end help or even AI help. If you scan this QR code, you'll get to a landing page that has a bundle, and that bundle includes your year-end cheat sheet, your Giving Tuesday cheat sheet, and your AI guide for nonprofits. Each of these is an ebook that you can download or print out. I always printed stuff out so I could doodle on it while I was working through it. They have checklists, resources, important tips. Highly recommend downloading this bundle. But for today's webinar, we're going to mainly focus on creating and executing a Giving Tuesday strategy based on specific roles and assignments. So we'll get into that a little bit. And we're going to talk about how to communicate with AI tools. I know for me, one of the most daunting things when I first started using AI was how to get what was in my head onto paper in order for the AI tool to understand what I was trying to do. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and I think it will be helpful. But highly recommend downloading this bundle so that you can not only work through the things that we'll talk through in the presentation, but there's a lot of extra insight in those resources.
I like that you mentioned that, Julia, because I think the most daunting thing for me when it comes to AI was kind of being taken over. Like, I'm a writer, I'm a creative, I was a musician before that. So like the thought of a computer doing what I do just like stressed me out, but we have found that that's not the case.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too. So that's a great point, Emily. And, you know, this quote is very important. It says, studies show that on average, communicators using AI save at least 3 hours on a content piece, and implementing AI technologies in communication can increase an organization's ROI by 30%. I want to just sit on this for a minute because there are a few things we need to talk about here. First of all, as Emily mentioned, AI can be daunting. Oh, I just saw someone that mentioned they didn't get the QR code in time. No problem. It will be at the end of the presentation as well. While we're taking questions, the QR code will be on the screen. So don't worry, we'll get back to it. Okay, anyway. So number one, AI can be daunting for sure. We know that. We know that it takes skill to learn. However, today we hope to address how to get started, and that the actual starting threshold is pretty low. So we're going to take some of that fear out of using AI in the first place. Secondly, you are stretched thin. As Emily and I mentioned, we have both worn so many hats in nonprofits. I know that you can go from being on the phone with a donor to stocking shelves, to sorting mail, to going for a walk in order to get a picture of a project. Like, you're doing everything. We know that. We've been there. I've been the one walking to go get a picture of our project space. We want to help bring down the fear of AI because you have so much going on. This will be a tool to help you, not to replace you. So just know that we are not suggesting that you throw everything out that you've ever done. the AI will be a helpful tool. So something like which DonorPerfect integrates with Constant Contact. So something like Constant Contact, that's a tool, an email tool that you use. It doesn't replace the fact that you need to figure out what your emails look like or what you're going to write in the emails, but it helps you to automate your emails or to check the click rates of your emails, things like that. It's just an additional tool. AI is the same. And again, we just want to park on the fact that you cannot be replaced. I talked a little bit about how sometimes it can be hard for me to get from my brain onto paper for AI to understand what I'm thinking. AI has to know the context of what you're saying, and you're the only one that can provide that context. AI cannot guess what your message should be. You have to prompt AI. So your knowledge of your organization is incredibly vital when using AI.
And on top of that, we wanted to call attention to the fact that year-end fundraising is the most critical time of year for like any nonprofit, really. Among our DonorPerfect users, over 30% of the year's gifts are given in the last 3 months of the year. So this is huge. We want you to be able to take advantage of people's generosity at this time, but we also want you to be able to take a dang vacation this year. Like, we know you have families and you want to celebrate the holidays with your loved ones. And I remember when I was working in nonprofits, there were times where I was in on Christmas Eve and I had, I got to see my brother who was living, far away at the time for, I think, 15 minutes. And then I had to sprint back, we want you to not have to do stuff like that. Use these tools to save yourself time and to buy yourself that freedom and flexibility back.
Yeah, I remember the same thing. I was a DonorPerfect user. I was one of the organizations that was raising 30% of my budget in the last couple of weeks of the year. I remember having holiday movies on in the background, working on my computer while my family was enjoying holiday movies. This AI tool and using these tools to set yourself up for success in advance will help you to relieve some of that stress of the 30% of your revenue. Again, Emily and I know what that feels like. And so we're trying to help provide some solutions because we care about you as a fundraiser. You have so much going on. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the campaign roles. So this is a breakdown of the people who are part of a campaign. However, some of these people are you. So in the case when I was a team of one, I look at these as maybe hats instead of people. So maybe you're wearing all 4 of these hats and it's just you and your train of thought needs to switch. Or maybe you have people on your team that you can delegate certain things to. We're going to look at it from a 30,000-foot view on what these roles or train of thoughts are, and you can kind of delineate what is important for you to be thinking about or another member of your team. So let's talk about these roles. First is the strategist. This is the person who comes up with the campaign goals and how the funds will be used. Depending on the size of your organization, maybe this is your executive director, your founder, maybe it's your development director if you have a larger organization, but it's the person who really decides, okay, this is our goal based on our budget. This is, how we're going to craft the message of why we need these funds, things like that. So it's the overseer of the campaign. Next, we have the administrator. This person is the person who watches the checks come in or makes sure that the data is going in correctly. This person, when I had a team of 4, this was my I leaned on this person constantly to know information about what was coming in. They were very practical. They were able to see certain trends in our giving because they were so entrenched in the data and in making sure that information was in the system properly. Next is the communicator. This person develops the messaging. So being sure that they are saying the right things to the right people, using the right tools like AI or email marketing, things like that. They're in charge of the messaging in general. And then lastly is the networker. This is the person that gets the word out about what's going on, maybe adds some updates, things like that, is an advocate for your campaign or your organization. Now, again, you could be wearing all 4 of these hats. You could be making the decision about the campaign, watching the gifts come in, crafting the message, and telling everybody what's going on. I understand that. I was that a few times at end of year. It makes sense. There are other people, however, that you can lean on a little bit, especially in the networker role. If there are people in your organization that are interested in what you're doing or are excited about what you're doing, so maybe that's a volunteer, maybe that's a board member, maybe it's a very active donor, those people can be your networkers. They can be the ones sharing the message about what's going on in your organization and the opportunities to give. So don't feel like you're put in a box if you are a team of one. Feel like you have the opportunity to look at these different hats and consider who could wear what.
We like the thought too of these roles as not being like necessarily tied to your job description or like your organizational hierarchy, that these are kind of something that can be like a bit more fluid and filled by anybody.
Yeah, is anything tied to your job description in nonprofits? Not really.
It's other duties is assigned, all
yes,
that.
it's just all in there in one big bucket.
So I'll kick stuff off by talking about the strategist and the key tasks and how the strategist can use AI to help streamline those tasks. So first, the strategist is really responsible for all of the planning and the goal setting, and so the analysis that sets you up for success. So you're going to be setting this year's year-end fundraising goals, reviewing budget requirements, and upcoming initiatives so you can share those things with your supporters. You're going to be building the campaign timeline, determining ways to share your campaign, not actually sharing it. That's more the networker's job. And setting up your stewardship parameters. So things like who is going to get a form letter, who's going to get a handwritten card, who's going to get a phone call, who's going to get like an in-person visit. If you have a wonderful, amazing donor that deserves to have their door knocked on. So sort of defining who will receive what kinds of communication from your nonprofit. The strategist should also brush up on year-end tax tips, determine what kinds of gifts you're willing and able to accept. So now that can include things like, I know that crypto is not nearly as big as it used to be, but it could still include things like crypto or stocks or in-kind gifts, in addition to cash and checks. So Julia, if there's anything I'm missing as a development director, I never did fill that bucket. What kind of other tasks that the strategist would do that you would want to add to this?
Sure, I think this is a great list. The one thing that I would add is that the strategist is kind of the like central system of a campaign. So they're the ones asking the administrator for the report that's going to give them the information they need. They're the ones telling the communicator, hey, here's our goal and here's what we want and here's how we need to tell people about it. You can craft that message. And they're the ones telling the networker, hey, here's an update, share it with your people, whatever. So the strategist is kind of the central brain of the operation. In addition to pulling off all of these tasks, they also are coordinating everyone else's tasks.
Very much like a spoken wheel kind of situation. I love it.
Right, exactly.
So here's some ideas on ways that if you are the strategist, you can use AI to help make your life easier. You can analyze and visualize your data. I want to be very, very clear that it's really important to be cautious about uploading your donor data into free AI tools. Like if there's one thing I can stress, I think it's this. Just because you're not necessarily, it's not necessarily secure and you don't know what happens to that data after you upload it. So I would recommend only using, if you want to use AI to visualize your data, just upload things like zip code, area code, gift amount, maybe fund type, things that kind of divorce the individual from the gift. That can still provide you with useful information, just to make sure that you're not putting in any names, addresses, phone numbers, things like that could compromise your donor's data. So just be very, very cautious, but otherwise you'll be good. You can also use AI to build timelines. I know that a lot of people think of AI like in terms of ChatGPT and really just like as content generating, but it scours the entire internet for whatever information you need. It's like next level Google. So you can get suggestions on types of timelines you could use based on your team and your needs. You can also get suggestions on where and how to share your Giving Tuesday fundraising campaign. And you can even ask AI to write the best prompts for itself. This is something I just learned today. I'm so jazzed about it. I just went to ChatGPT and said, hey, like, if I were to want to write, a fundraising email for Giving Tuesday for an animal welfare organization, what prompt should I use to get the best results? And it generated a whole bunch of wonderful ideas for me to play with. So if you're not sure what to even ask it what to ask it.
It's very meta.
I know, it's wild. So here is our first, we decided to do 2 styles of prompts sort of for each of these roles to show you what a more simple prompt versus a more detailed prompt will provide for you. I don't know if anybody else did this when they were in elementary school, but when I was a kid, my teacher had us write out instructions on how to create a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so, of course, being second graders or whatever, we were all like, you put the peanut butter on the bread. And so she took a loaf of bread still in the package, put it on a desk, took the jar of peanut butter, still in the jar, put it on top of the bread and was like, okay, now what? So you have to make sure that you have to remember that AI is kind of like that teacher in that moment, that it only knows what you tell it. So the more detail, the better, really. But you can get a lot of really good information just from something as simple as this. So build a timeline for a Giving Tuesday fundraising campaign. Here's what I got. I used Claude AI, but you could also use, ChatGPT, whatever free AI tool that you are interested in. So this is it's generic, but it's pretty good. So starting around mid-October, setting your goals, creating your fundraising page, start getting your momentum going. There's a lot more to it. I just grabbed a screenshot for the first 4 weeks, but it goes all the way till after Giving Tuesday, making sure that it covers, everything from pulling your mailing lists to stewardship. So it really does organize you and set you up for success in that way. However, if you get a little bit more specific here, so we've got a Giving Tuesday fundraising campaign for an animal welfare organization. They've got a fundraising goal of $5,000, and here is our staff, here's our availability. What can we do with what we have? Is kind of the question that I wanted to ask Claude AI here. So they actually assign suggested tasks to different people. They include very, more specific tasks even. So things like executive director, so this isn't on the slide here, but it says 2 weeks before in late October, executive director reaches out to local media contacts, fundraiser promotes events, volunteer shares social posts. So it's very specific and organized. It divides activities on roles while allowing collaboration between the 3 roles. And it really focuses energy toward, building up a really exciting campaign, one that increases in urgency as you go. So I found this to be really helpful. And if I were, starting a new nonprofit, or if I were kind of new to fundraising, or if this were my first Giving Tuesday, this timeline, I don't know that I would change much. I think it's pretty killer. So AI can really help you here.
This is really helpful for what we were talking about before, Emily, with the strategist specifically having to really make sure all the moving parts are moving. Mm-hmm. That gives you hey, ask your volunteer to share this at this week specifically. How much help is that? That's so much help because you don't have to put in the effort to figure that out. And this is a great example of using AI not only to write something, as Emily said, she and I are writers. We don't want to be replaced by AI. In this case, we're using AI for something other than content creation. We're using it for ideation and for organization. It's not writing our email campaigns, which it can do, and we'll get into that, but it can do so many other things like creating timelines or checklists or prompt questions or whatever. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about the administrator, and in the same way that I served as a strategist by being a development director, Emily served as an administrator in her role previously. So we're going to kind of go back and forth a little bit about what she would add from her experience. But we'll go through first some of the administrator tasks. So one is looking at your potential segments. This administrator is in your CRM every single day, putting in checks or watching gifts come in or checking monthly giving. So they're able to see these certain segments that maybe I, as the development director who was looking more high level, wouldn't see as often. So this key administrator would be able to help depict which segments are important. Also, they can create mail merge templates or things that will be used on a larger scale. So making sure that the right fields are pulled into your dynamic lists, or the right fields are pulled into your emails that are already written, things like that. They can also pull historical data. I hope that your administrator is a whiz at your CRM. And again, DonorPerfect is a CRM. We do things like reporting, things like that. The person who's in your CRM can pull these specific reports that say, okay, who gave last year on Giving Tuesday? And making sure that those people are on your new lists of people you're going to reach out to this year on Giving Tuesday. I also want to note, maybe this is your first Giving Tuesday. Maybe you don't have Giving Tuesday historical data. If that's the case, just look at your general historical data. Look at what your last campaign asked. Look at what your gala, like who was invited to your gala. Look at things that do group people together in a specific way and use those as your launching points for your historical data. And then lastly, this person can assign personalized thank yous and donor engagement to other staff members. At my organization, we did a thing called fellowship groups, where we had certain staff members were assigned certain people. And so if Mr. Smith gave a $500 gift on a Thursday, my administrator would reach out to the staff member who was assigned Mr. Smith and say, hey, can you send Mr. Smith a personalized thank you? So this person really helps to organize all the things that are moving from the data. Emily, would you add anything else for the administrators?
Yeah, before we get into the AI section of this, I was just kind of thinking about how I am a little bit jealous of administrators with AI tools at their disposal, because when I started as an assistant, it was my first job out of college. I didn't really know what I was doing. If you're asked to analyze data and you've never done that before, I feel like I would look at spreadsheets like they were one of those old Magic Eye books, just like hoping something would jump out at me if I crossed my eyes the right way. So you can use AI if you're not familiar or like comfortable with data analysis by, stripping it obviously of identifying information, but you can, assign a number to a specific donor. And if you want to see their giving patterns, you can ask AI to do that for you. So you don't have to just like smash your head against a wall trying to, spot little, diamonds in your data. This tool can do that and really help you find those patterns and give them to the fundraisers who need them.
Great point. Now we'll talk a little bit about the AI tools that you can use as an administrator. One example is to use the tool to generate professional responses to common questions. I know my administrator, every year we did this crowdfunding campaign, and every year she got the same exact questions about how to set up a crowdfunding campaign. And there were times where she would have to sit and respond to these questions over and over and over, but she could have used AI to generate the right professional response to this same question that she got all the time. Another idea is to generate a list of donor segments. And then lastly, getting ideas from types of data that are helpful in determining fundraising goals. This one, the helpful and for determining fundraising goals is really interesting, because you would think, why would AI know that? But it's because they have so much information from so many platforms that they're pulling best practices from blogs on DonorPerfect or from thought leaders in the sector or things like that they can pull together these examples. So we're going to give another prompt example using the second point, generating donor segments, and we'll show you what it might look like to ask AI to generate some donor segments. So the question, generate a list of possible donor segments for a Giving Tuesday fundraising campaign. That's easy enough. Simple question, not a ton of thought put into it. And look at everything that this AI tool produced. Here are some segments of your potential Giving Tuesday groups: existing donors, lapsed donors, volunteers, event attendees, social media. There's even more that came up with this list, but we didn't have enough room on the slide. And all we did was ask the simple question, who should we ask to give on Giving Tuesday? And not only did AI give us a who, they gave us why and how. So let's look at lapsed donors. So they say, contact people who have donated in the past 12, have not donated in the past 12 to 24 months. So that's your who. Remind them of your mission. So that's your how. And your why is to give them a reason to re-engage. So not only did AI answer your question about who we should reach out to, but they broke down the specifics of that group, how to reach out to them, and why. So
and that's just that basic question.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's a question I ask myself sitting at my desk. Oh man, who should I talk to about Giving Tuesday? So just put that into a generating tool and see if it gives you some ideas. Something like social media followers, that one's an interesting one. I wouldn't have thought about that. But by posting something on social media, maybe you'll get new givers that were only kind of viewers before, but now they want to be really involved givers. It may give you some groups that you haven't really reached out to yet. But let's see what happens when we give it a more specific prompt. So here is a more specific thought out prompt. Generate a list of possible donor segments for Giving Tuesday fundraising for an animal welfare organization whose largest one-time gift was $1,000. The organization has 2,000 constituents in its database, and that includes donors, volunteers, staff, and prospective donors. So we've given AI more information about our specific organization. We've said what our mission is, what our goal is. We've talked about who we are talking to in our database, and let's see if it gives us any more information. So not only did it give us more options for groupings, but it gave us more specific information. So like existing donors here, it says you should reach out to the existing donors and segment them by gift amount, target those who have given high levels. So not only did it give you the group, but it gave you some best practices for how to reach out to that specific group. Again, because we were more specific with the groups that we're talking to, what we're looking for, and why we want people to be involved.
What I really love about this, what I noticed, kind of just been playing around with these prompts, is that the more detail you give, it seems the more sophisticated the answer you get in return. So something like, it doesn't appear on the slide, but one of the suggested groups was lapsed donors of $100 or more. So re-engaging those who previously gave over $100 but haven't recently donated will help you save time from maybe going for the people who gave, $5 in memory of a pet that they lost and are never interested in giving again. But someone who gave over 100 is probably more likely to give again. So I think that it kind of is, it knows. So if you give it just that little bit more information, it'll give you something a bit better.
That's a good point. And on this slide, I love that it says, the point 3 says major event attendees, identify attendees of high profile events who may have capacity. This is interesting because they're not saying major givers, they're saying people who have attended an event, because they know based on your more specific prompt that you have potential givers in your database. So they're saying, oh, there are some other segments, not only people have given, but what about those people who attended that event and maybe didn't give? Maybe they want to give now. So again, adding those specifics to the prompt is really helpful.
So I'm going to be talking about the communicator, and Julie and I are both communicators, so we're going to kind of jump in together on this one. So the key communicator tasks for year-end fundraising include things like determining the tone, overall ethos, just sort of how you want people to feel about your Giving Tuesday campaign. And they're really responsible for creating a bunch of written content, might be responsible for design. It really depends on your organization. But they'll do things like the online donation page, your online donation form, direct mail appeals, email appeals, thank you call video scripts, stewardship communications, advertisements, maybe radio ads. Any way that the language your nonprofit used is included is probably the responsibility of the communicator. So ways that people who are in the communicator role can use AI tools that aren't necessarily just write me an email, ChatGPT, are things like updating successful appeals from previous years. I found that nobody, like even among the nonprofits that I support, nobody remembers the exact language that you use each year, but they do remember if you make them feel like an ATM. So if you use, if you repeat a few phrases, or if you recycle content from successful appeals in the past, the odds that anyone is ever going to catch that are so slim that this is such a great way to save time and make sure that you're raising money because you're using language that works for your audience. You can also ask your AI tool to generate Giving Tuesday updates, so you can be ready at any moment with key updates for your supporters. Then all you have to do is fill in the blanks with your most up-to-date information. I would advise to be really, really specific here with these prompts as the communicator, and that is your job. This is the fun part, because especially AI doesn't know who is talking to it. And so if two users ask it the same exact question, it'll give them more or less the same exact answer. So make sure that you're using prompts that really include your mission, your values, what your goals, what you want to get out of it. so that your message is different. Because if I did get 2 matching letters the same year, that I would notice.
Could you imagine the faux pas of like
wild
2 sending the same exact email?
Like me and the Red Cross, like, no, like
Another note that we didn't really touch on yet is that these AI tools are not always perfect. Sometimes the grammar is off, sometimes the use of a certain example is off. So it's very important for you to review these things, not only putting the right prompts in and being specific in the prompts, but once you get the information put out by AI, you can go back in and change some of the information, making sure that it reflects your organization specifically, as opposed to a generic fundraising email.
I'm actually super glad you said that, because I purposefully included some errors in the generated content for the communicator, just to prove that it's, yeah, that it said one of the emails will say that, oh, for 2020, 2020 was a while ago. So just, yeah, make sure that, the year is correct. There's a lot that you'll have to proofread and fix, but it's such a great starting point. So, so here's prompt 1 for the communicator. You just want to get your email peels out the door. You're working on 16 different proposals, so this is a great way to knock out some of those tasks that you have year end. So prompt 1, we have, write an email fundraising appeal soliciting donors at the end of the calendar year. Keep it under 200 words and include a subject line and a pre-header. And it's really not bad. I mean, yeah, we're preparing to close out the end of 2020, which isn't perfect, but it does give you some blanks, to fill in yourself to make sure that you are being specific with your org. And it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. It's really not a bad fundraising letter, just with some minor updates. You can make this work.
Updates are incredibly important. Like, you can't copy and paste this and send it to 600 people. There are clearly things missing. There are things that you need to go back in and update, which goes back to what we said at the beginning. AI cannot replace you, because it cannot put the heartfelt need of your organization into this letter. You have to go put the heartfelt need of your organization into this letter. And in this case, this was a very easy prompt. In this case, not only do you have to put the heartfelt information, you also have to put the regular information, like the organization or the year. So yeah, just be sure not to copy and paste just because AI said this will do.
Love that. So for our second prompt, our more specific one, went with write an email fundraising appeal soliciting donors to an animal welfare organization, same time of year. Use a hopeful tone and invoke the spirit of generosity around the holiday season. We want the subject line, we want the pre-header, we want the 200-word maximum, but we also want the subject line to be enticing, or you could have it ask a question or include an emoji, anything that you want in that subject line. We want to include merge fields I put salutation, first name, and suggested gift amount, but you could use whatever your CRM has or whatever you want to include in that letter. And so I think this one is a bit better, but it's still kind of wonky. It's very gushy, it's very schmaltzy. And something like having the dear salutation first name is a little funky, but I really like things like the spirit of caring and community is the heart of our mission. Like, that's nice. That's a good place to start. That's a nice way to get that tone that you're looking for, that you might be looking for.
Okay, so now we're going to touch on the 4th role or 4th hat that you may be wearing. This is the networker. So this, again, I touched on this at the beginning, but this could be anyone that is willing to advocate for your organization. So it doesn't have to just be you. It could be your executive director, your founder, your social media person, your chairman of your board, your peer-to-peer fundraisers that are in love with your organization that always do peer-to-peer fundraising. It could be a really involved donor or a really involved volunteer. Anyone who has a platform to be able to share what's going on in your organization can serve this networker role.
Heck, it could even be your friends and family. Like, I've known people who have started their own nonprofits, and that's how you get off the ground, is just recruiting all of those wonderful people in your life.
Be us. Emily and I will help. We'll be networkers.
We're here for you.
Whatever you need. The key tasks for the networker is to spread the word, to share the goals and updates with key constituents, and to reach out personally to major donors and prospects. This takes so much time. so much time because it's so personalized. In order to be a networker, you need to be very personable and you need to be able to relate to people on a one-on-one level, which means that this takes a lot of time to build the right message for the right person at the right time. But our goal is to make that a little bit easier by using AI to figure out how do I spread the word? What's the best place to put this information? Things like that. And then you can add this layer of personalization because you have the time to do so. I know for me, a lot of times things fell by the wayside because I didn't have time to do them. I didn't have time to, go visit my very important donor because I was too busy crafting the right message for a segmented group, or I didn't have time to figure out the right publication to post something that our organization was doing because I was too busy making sure that our donors knew what our organization was doing and that I didn't have time to figure out how to tell everybody else. So the goal will be to save the networker time. And if you're asking a volunteer or a donor or a board member to be that networker, saving them time is incredibly important too, because if they're going to be really involved, they don't want to give you 40 hours a week. They don't work for you. They're a volunteer. So how do you make sure that whatever you're asking them to do is really easy and they can get in on the ground floor? Here are some ideas for using AI for the networker. One, you can ask your AI tool for lists of local publications, which we'll get into a little bit in a minute. You can also automate social media posts, which this one I love, especially if you can send it to your networker. This is another opportunity for the strategist to kind of be the brain of the operation. You send these social media examples to your networkers. You say, hey, post this image with this caption at this time. And they'll do it because they love your organization and they want to help get the word out. But you did the legwork on the front end by working with AI to create the right message and then sending it to them for them to post. So you're saving them time. Lastly, you can also create a script or talking points. I know for me, there were times where I had to call lapsed donors and figure out how to get them to reinstate their giving. I think AI would have been really wonderful to help me figure out how to say that to someone. Hey, you stopped giving. Can you start again? Was always a really difficult message, but I could have turned to AI, right? I could have turned to AI and said, hey, I have a lapsed donor who was giving X amount of money every month and they've stopped giving that. How do I not only get them to reinstate that, but maybe even upgrade that? What key points should I say when speaking with them?
You are giving me absolute flashbacks to the first time I was on the phone calling for upgrades, and I was so awkward. Oh my gosh. I was like, hey, do you want to add more to your gift? You know?
Yeah.
So having that,
do you want to get some more of the money? We would like that.
That would be
AI
great
can
for
help
us.
us with things like that. That would be great. So asking it for specific fundraising examples like that is a great way to help you save time and not agonize over, oh my gosh, what if they answer the phone? So I mentioned that we'll get back into the list of local publications. That's what we're going to use for the example for this section. So the prompt, the first prompt, the more like low level, not as thought out prompt, is create a list of publications in the 90210. I think it's supposed to be, oh yeah, 90210. I read that backwards. 90210 zip code that offer ad space for nonprofits during the holiday season. I love this. This is a great idea. I highly recommend doing this. Maybe even in the 90210 zip code, because we know that 90210ers have some money that they may want to give. But so putting that prompt into AI gave us this whole list of people, this whole list of publications that would be willing to run an ad for your organization. How much time did that just save? You asked AI one question and it gave you a list of 10 to 15 publications that would be willing to post things and gave you context on those publications. So like, Beverly Hills Weekly is a free weekly paper distributed in Beverly Hills and West Hollywood. KTLA5 is a television station that donates PSAs or discounted airtime. That's something that maybe you wouldn't know had you not asked the right question at the right place. Also, something that AI did here that we couldn't fit on the slide was it recommended which of these would be the best. So it said to start with Beverly Hills Courier, Beverly Hills Times, KTLA5, LA Parent Magazine, and Next Door Beverly Hills. And it said that those 5 specifically would offer really affordable ads and go to a more engaged local audience. So if you're a food pantry and you're looking for your shelves to be stocked for the holiday season, those publications go for people who live locally and who are interested in local philanthropy. So that would be your best bet to use those specific publications. And AI is the one that told you you didn't have to go read all 15 of these publications in order to figure out which one maybe seems most local. AI just suggested the ones that are best. So now we'll look at maybe giving a little more specific. The specification here is a list of businesses in the 90210 zip code that offers space for ads, donations, or for discounts for local nonprofits during holiday season. So the last one was just kind of, hey, how can I tell people about my mission? And this one is, hey, which businesses do I contact that will help tell people about my mission? And AI, again, produced an entire list of Beverly Hills companies that would be willing to partner with a nonprofit. And it again recommended specific ones that would help nonprofits because they're more philanthropic. It's very interesting to me. Like, I live in South Florida. I don't live in 90210. But I feel like I know enough to put some information about my organization in the 90210 zip code because of 2 AI prompts, which is really amazing. And for those who are really trying to figure out if they can do this, just look back at all of our prompt ones. Those were really simple questions that you can just type into AI and see what it spits out. And each of those prompt ones gave us really great information to get started. So we're excited to help break down some of these walls for using AI for nonprofits. It's not replacing you by any means, but it will give you ideas and help to break some of that writer's block or give you some ideas that maybe you hadn't thought of before.
Totally agreed. And before we get to questions, we just kind of wanted to reiterate that yes, even a simple, very bare bones prompt is going to generate a really good starting point for you. So just dive right in. The worst that happens is it doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for, and then you can try again. That's the beauty of these free generative tools. I also recommend playing with your prompts if you have the time. Even just taking, 10, 15 minutes, trying the same prompt a few different ways, just like, okay, try that again in a hopeful voice, or try that again in a professional voice, or okay, those results are good, but can we add X, Y, or Z? So just play and kind of explore and figure out what works best for you. And finally, AI can, what's that?
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say building on your prompt is so good. There are so many times where I'll ask a question and then I'll say, okay, great, expand that by 200 words. Or, okay, great, make 4 bullet points that reiterate that point. So you don't lose the thing that you asked before, but you can build on it.
Exactly. And then finally, AI can never replace your human heart, your ingenuity, your passion for your mission, your drive, all of those good things. And you and AI are going to be a great, partnership really for this year's Giving Tuesday and end of year fundraising efforts. And we really hope and truly believe that they'll save you time and help you raise more money and give you a holiday season that you can actually enjoy. So that is really our hope for you. If you haven't been able to scan the QR code yet, I would encourage you to do so. Yeah, we're really looking forward to opening up the floor for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie and Emily. That was fantastic. I really love your emphasis because every time, machine learning and artificial intelligence come up, there's a lot of hesitancy there because there's a lot of unknown there. And so the emphasis that this is a tool and this is something to help you out, this is something to make your life easier, but nobody can replace the human element that you have. Nobody can replace what your organization brings to the table and what that human effect has. And that's a big, big piece of fundraising is that human element and these real issues that we're trying to address. So I love
And
that emphasis.
we're living proof of that. Emily and I are
Mhm.
writers for a software company where we communicate every single day. I'm not afraid of losing my job and I use AI every day. So we're not saying this like, oh, good luck, go try it out. We're saying, hey, we've been doing this and I promise you it's not going to replace you. It's just going to help you.
And I say this as someone who was terrified that AI was going to replace me.
Absolutely. I know I'm a marketing and communications person. When you hit that roadblock and that writer's block of I've been staring at this document for an hour straight, there are no new words coming to my head. I almost wish that things would start rearranging on their own so that at least I'd have a new idea. It's
like you're reading my
ChatGPT
diary.
can be everything. Yes. Just a note for all of our attendees, I'm going to launch a poll for you really quickly so that if you were going through and when you registered for the webinar, you didn't opt in, you wanted to see what Julia and Emily had to say before you opted in, and now you've heard the wonderful things that they had to share, go ahead and fill out that poll, opt in to receive more communication. This is just the tip of the iceberg for what DonorPerfect has to offer. So please click the right thing there. We've gotten a good amount of conversation in the chat and in the Q&A section about what AI tools that you guys use. I know ChatGPT is one we've talked about a little bit, but are there other ones that you guys recommend using or that you find to be most helpful or a good getting started with AI?
I'm still learning a lot. So I would say right now my go-to is ChatGPT because it's so easy to start. But there are many, many other ones. There's one that you can use that will generate images, which Emily and I are word people, but our design team uses that sometimes to try and take the thing that they're picturing in their head and explain it to AI, and it can create an image, which is really cool. Emily, there's also Claude.ai, which is really helpful. There are a few where you can upload entire ebooks, which we've done. We've uploaded an entire ebook and said, hey, we have a presentation on this, make us a session description, which is really interesting that it'll take so much information. I don't know, Emily, if there are any others that you've used.
I have used Playground. So if you want AI for images, Playground is pretty great. It's also terrifying and sometimes it gives you way too many teeth, but it's good.
Be careful with the same with words, images. Sometimes there's extra arms in there. Sometimes people are standing on just one foot. It's very strange.
Oh, and before I forget, I have used Akkio, Akkio, for data analysis. So if you want to upload spreadsheets, that's a good one to use. But I don't we're not really speaking for DonorPerfect. We're not endorsing any, these are just things that I've messed around with. So if anybody has good ones that we haven't mentioned, I'm seeing I've never used Free Willy before. That's awesome. I'll try that next. Pop them in the chat if you've used a good one.
I feel like it's just a never-ending list and more come out, and the capabilities of what you can use artificial intelligence for just keep growing, and it's really cool. Sometimes daunting. We'll be honest here, you never know what you're gonna get, and proofreading so important. But a lot of great tools. If you have any questions that are coming to mind as we're going through this, drop those in there now. I'll just put up some final contact information again for both DonorPerfect and for QGive. So if you have any questions after the webinar, take this down. And I do want to remind everyone that today's session is eligible for that CFRE continuing education credit. So please take advantage of that and make sure we're taking advantage of everything. Brendan, is there anything you wanted to add today?
I was actually going to chime in. I was the random square that popped up into the session. I apologize that I wasn't able to join at the time that we started, but thank you, Emily and Julia. What I was able to see was great. I loved the couple of times that you reemphasize asking your networkers, asking your influencers to help with this. Can you give any other kind of real takeaways for templates that you've seen be successful when you're, a lot of times I think we get stuck in this ask for money, ask for money, ask for money. But some of our supporters, some of the people who have volunteered with us, some of our constituents are just as willing to do some legwork for us. So are there any other ways, some quick takeaways that you can share with the audience that's remaining on what you've seen be successful at organizations you've worked for or others that are worked with you at DonorPerfect?
Ooh. Well, you did just give me an idea that I haven't tested yet, so I don't know if it's successful. But if you want ideas for ways that people can help you, and if you want ways to ask for help and feel, not feel guilty about it, because that was always my biggest challenge as a fundraiser was that guilt. Ask AI to come up with tasks that take 5 minutes, an hour, half a day. Good for individuals, good for, corporate retreats. So just like volunteer ideas that anyone can do, that could be really cool so that you can take more off your plate. I think that'd be great.
I love that idea.
Love that. Yeah, that's great. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just love, we see that a lot of our content, a lot of our more popular content are these templates, right? Some of the things that fundraisers really need as a starting point to steer their team or their constituents into the actions that they want. So that would just be a cool, maybe it's a topic we can write a blog on or something on, how we can better prompt folks to help us at making the ask or spreading the word for a Giving Tuesday type event. Just an interesting topic that I thought of as you guys were going through it. But no, this was incredibly valuable. Thank you so much for the time that you took to put this together and share it with us today.
I would also be interested in creating, this is another, just new idea popped in my head, but like templates to interact with AI, like some prompt templates, like here are details to include, here's, ways to think about interacting with this thing. That could be a really useful resource too. That could, lots of ways to explore this topic. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just really grazing the top. There's endless possibilities and more to dive into. I feel like I have a bunch of different rabbit holes to dive into after this and things that I'm curious about now. Well, I don't see any additional questions that have come up. So we are a couple minutes short, but we'll give people a little bit more time left in your afternoon. I know fall season, event season, end of year campaigns, Giving Tuesday planning that you now have to go into ChatGPT and try new prompts on. And I'm sure you want your afternoon back to do with that. So if there's anything else, definitely reach out to DonorPerfect, reach out to Emily and Julia or Brendan and I. We would love to chat more with you about what we've discussed today. If not, thank you again, Julia and Emily, for all of your work. I think we will wrap things up for today.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Much
much
for having us.
Awesome. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thanks.